I'm Quentin Angus, and this is Good Company. Each episode, I speak to a world-class artist about their craft and the stories that make them who they are. And today, I have the extreme pleasure of speaking with Josh Meader, a virtuosic Australian guitar player who's been taking the world by storm. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's talk about some more recent things that have been going on. You just completed, I believe, your first tour as a band leader of Europe that included a sold-out show at Ronnie Scott's. Do you have any takeaways or cool stories that you would like to share with the listeners?
Oh man, it was just such a cool experience to be able to do it for the first time, and to play at some of those legendary venues, especially like Ronnie's. That was pretty trippy because the greatest artists of all time have kind of all been through there and played in that beautiful room. So that was definitely very special, and to do it with my Australian band as well, get them out here, and it was so many highlights. It's hard to think, but I guess one of the big ones was just kind of getting to do so many shows consecutively. Like from a musical perspective, it was just something that's very rare to be able to do these days, and it's pretty crazy how much you pick up from and learn from each night, and every night seems to kind of rise in level, and it gets better and better, like just the band all together playing. And so from a musical perspective, that was really fun. And then it was just great to meet everyone who came out to the shows as well. That was really cool to hear their stories a little bit and where they'd come from, and all that stuff. So special all around, definitely.
Interesting. And do you find that the show changes depending on the location that you are? You talked a little bit about it changing and developing because you get to play so much, but does the audience influence the performance at all? Do you feel any of that?
Guess so. Yeah, I guess so, man. There's definitely so many different factors every show that will change. So the more you can kind of keep the same, the better. But even from just down to the way the room sounds on stage, it can totally affect the way you play, and obviously the audience, how much how much you can feel from them, and then there's many factors that will always change it, whether it's positively or sometimes there'll be stuff that goes awry, and then but still, man, it's all part of it. It's good practice to be able to deal with whatever situation kind of gets thrown at you. And then I guess just doing different sets too, because we had certainly plenty of variation when it came to the sets, because we had about 4 different set options as we went, because some venues wanted 2:45s, some venues wanted just a straight 90, or even a straight 2 hours. So the set would definitely depend based on that, and we'd also play differently. If we get a longer period of time, then it kind of gives us more chance to really play around with the solo sections of the tunes and expand them out, and be a bit more free with that. But then if it's kind of a strict timeline, then also it forces us to really get to the point of our playing, especially in the solos, and have to think about building things quicker and all that stuff. It changes all the time, but that's really fun, definitely.
And how important is the band members to you? And the context of this question is coming with whenever I collaborate with an artist that I respect and has their own unique voice or way of doing things, often I pull back from whatever my concept is and allow them to add their artistry, and it just brings the whole thing to a new level. But so maybe a little bit about that, but then also you've stuck with these bandmates for a long time, right? So it seems like there's some kind of reason for that.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, it's such a collaboration project, really. We've been playing together for the last 4 years, I guess, since the end of 2020. But we've been kind of in the same circles, but even before then. And the band, I mean, the music of that we were playing, it's really like kind of the music of all three of us, really. Like it's such a collaborative effort. Even if songs maybe start from me, most of the time, it then, I'll write out the rough sections and then kind of we rehearse it once, then maybe Matt, he might take away and come up with some other ideas for new sections, and then we'll try them out and then like collaborate in the session and really build the tunes out all together. So I guess for these tunes in particular, they're sort of pretty pretty integral to the sound. And I guess what's really cool about it is it's just such a tight trio, because Matt can handle so many different things, whether it's keys, and then he's adding the bass on top of that with his left hand, and then he's also adding in samples and sounds. We haven't even really gotten to playing with any kind of track elements yet, but it's already so full just with that. And to be able to get away with just us being a trio is pretty cool, I think. And yeah, I don't think musically it suffers at all. If anything, like I feel like that core rhythm unit of Matt and Alex together, kind of covering three instruments but only being two people, makes it just even more tighter. And then I can kind of do fill in the bits on top. Generally the guitar is in this band, but yeah, it's so much fun, so much fun.
And you all memorize the music?
Yeah, it's all memorized. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Which is they're pretty intense tunes. So that's the other thing. I'd so much prefer if everyone's just playing from memory, because as soon as the sheet music's there, it's like part of your brain kind of has to switch off in a way from that listening aspect, or it's very hard to get that going. So all memorized. And we had probably, I think one night we even played like 2 hours and 15 minutes, so quite a lot of material, all from the album, and then some extra covers thrown in as well. But yeah,
Wow.
it's great fun.
Wow. Sweet. Amazing. All right, so I want to talk about like early Josh when you were younger, because I know that I think I saw you post something when you were super young. Doesn't your dad play guitar, and you used to do like full on shred stuff? Is that right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about your dad and like how you first started playing guitar and all of the shred stuff that you did when you were younger?
Yeah, I started. So my dad, double bass player and guitarist. Started playing guitar initially, and then kind of in his 20s shifted to playing double bass, and yeah, he's been my primary teacher ever since I was 7. I think when I was 7, I went up to him and from my memory and from his memory, went up to him and asked him to, if I could start having guitar lessons. And I guess for him it was something that he already probably predicted at some point. He bought me my first guitar when I was 2, so he was probably very pleased when I asked him to, start playing properly. But he kind of, really made it a point that if we're going to do it, that we're going to do it properly, and that he's going to help me every step of the way. But it's not going to be something, just do a little bit. It's like, I had a real interest in music from when I was little, because I was always watching my dad play in bands, and I used to draw pictures of me and my dad together, both with instruments. So it was like, it must have been a very big thing for me to be able to play with him. So from that point forward, he basically every day before school, he would get up with me at maybe like 7 a.m. and give me an hour guitar lesson before school every day of the week, weekends too, I think. And then when I got home from school, we would either do like a band rehearsal with some of my friends, because they were also playing music, and maybe they'd come around the house and we'd do a bit of a rehearsal, and then we'd just have fun as well. But kind of after school was all about kind of the musical aspect. Before school was all about kind of the technical stuff. So I was bridging those two things together, and my dad would write us little songs to play. I've got a couple clips of my first concert ever at school. I think when I was 8, maybe, or just started playing. Maybe I was 7 there. But just doing really simple little melody things. I think one of them was like something as simple as, and it would turn into a blues. And Thunderstruck, stuff like that. Or AC/DC was massive. So that was the starting point, and then I guess my love for guitar and music just grew from there. And I remember every well, on a regular basis, I would kind of, my dad would show me like a new artist, just to build the whole, the catalog of all the amazing music, starting with sort of the rock thing and then branching out into the more shreddy thing. And we'd have guitar players, so whatever like new big guitar thing in the world could come out, my dad would research it and then check it out. We'd check it out together, and yeah, it was a real special journey together, that's for sure. And then when I was, I guess 9 or 10, it was starting to do like little rock band stuff. Like my dad was mates with it was an amazing dude, and this was all in Amsterdam, by the way, where I grew up. But he ran like a rock school, very inspired by like School of Rock, which is of course my favorite movie at that time. And they basically had a rock school, and it was maybe 10 different bands or something. So I was in a couple, and yeah, that was an amazing outlet just to be able to try all this stuff. And then yeah, I moved to Australia when I was 11. And then I guess things started to change a little bit. My interest grew more into the at first actually heavy metal direction. I think because I was always very interested in technical sounding music, Van Halen being one of my favorite bands, and then it grew into the metal world, and the guitar kind of virtuoso world, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Yngwie Malmsteen, all of that. And in my metal phase, it was definitely like Pantera and Children of Bodom. They were the top two, maybe Metallica as well. And from there, started hearing like whispers about guys like Guthrie Govan. And I think at that point is sort of when I switched completely and wanted that more improvisational jazz fusion, going into the jazz world a little bit from there. And then my dad and I would busk every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and we just do standards. And I remember at the time being very, I could technically, I was fairly proficient with the kind of metal stuff, but when it came to improvising and suddenly having to switch changes and everything, that was the real that was a real challenge, and that I think was kind of the most fun. It was just trying to do this thing which I just couldn't believe anybody could improvise the way the greats do, and that became the challenge at that time. Try and figure out how it all works. And Borelli Legrand, Sylvain Luc were massive influences because of their duo albums. So my dad and I would actually play a lot of their songs. So it gave me kind of an incentive of like, oh, check out their solos, and actually start to like transcribe. I think the first song I transcribed was Borelli Legrand and Sylvain Luc's version of So What. And I think the first few lines that I tried were kind of at the end where I believe it's Borelli. He's doing these beautiful little licks in between the classic So What riff. I think that was the first ever little licks that I got on my iPod at the time and slowed down using a slowdown app and tried to figure it out note for note. And I think at that time I'd already been exposed to a lot of music theory stuff from my dad, and he'd already taught me modally, what kind of modes are, chord progressions, 251, 3/6, 251, relative minor, major stuff, and already playing a couple songs that was using all of that vocabulary. So I think I did have a natural, a good in because of that, and kind of seeing everything from an interval perspective. So instantly started translating that over to the transcribed material and just slowly building from there. But I guess that's definitely early journey, Josh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has your dad ever played with you like recently, like on with all the stuff that you're doing now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. We still play together, and we still do all those classic songs, man. And yeah, every time I'm back in Sydney, we'll do like this regular gig in the city, and maybe once every week or once every twice every fortnight or something. So yeah, it's always fun, man. It's always fun. It's always the best.
Sweet. And so you mentioned transcribing a little bit there. Can you talk about, because I know you have like, some super famous like viral videos of you transcribing the craziest stuff, like either guitar players or different instruments. Can you talk about, like, clearly that's been part of your journey, but like you have everything, it hasn't stopped you from being creative and developing your own sound. So like, do you still transcribe? And like, if so, like what purpose does it serve? Like how do you think of that type of work.
Yeah, yeah, sure, man. Yeah, yeah, definitely like transcribe as much as I can, and I'm always, yeah, I'm always just looking out for little, musical ideas from players I really love, and often kind of curiosity is what sparks like me wanting to transcribe something. It's just like hearing a sound that I think is cool, and just wanting to be able to either understand it and then either understand it or use it myself. And I guess, yeah, and sometimes both. It's like, oh, I want to figure out what that is, and if I can figure it out, then it's like, well, how can I use it in my own thing? And yeah, yeah, man, going through that process, I'd say that's definitely one of my favorite things to do because it keeps everything pretty fresh. I think I've had many times throughout playing where I've felt, I've kind of forgotten that, and my playing starts to feel a bit stale, and then it's like just remembering that, oh, it's all I need to do is just amass a whole bunch of new vocabulary and sift through that, and automatically things will start to, feel new, and especially when I'm practicing, because whenever I practice, kind of it's very vocabulary based. So I'll categorize everything into categories, and that'll sort of form my daily practice, whether it's like technical things or vocabulary based things. And often I'll join them together. For example, like if I'm working on sort of an inside picking thing, I'll often link that with a whole bunch of pentatonic fourth stuff, because that inside picking thing the pentatonic fourth stuff demands a lot of the inside picking strokes. So to be able to link things like that.
Could you demo?
Yeah, man, yeah. So
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, could you demo something like?
Yeah, it would be, that stroke, inside picking strokes, which is, playing in between the strings. So, for example, something like that, downstroke on G, upstroke on D, which is quite a hard movement to do, but appears often within vocabulary where you're switching strings regularly, kind of a bebop thing, or maybe like a more modern kind of pentatonic thing. So what I'll do is put that into an exercise like this pentatonic thing. Different positions. The picking there would be like down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down. And it's cool for this end too, because it gets to do a lot of switching, right? Never doing the bars. So if I'm doing, 3 notes there, it'll be first finger, second finger, third finger.
And that's so you can get a clear sound out of each note, right? You don't want it to sound like a chord.
Exactly, man. Yeah, exactly. So that sort of stuff, it'll be very formulated as an exercise, but then I will start to go into maybe some more like vocabulary or licks that I've transcribed from different people. Some of them many, many years ago. There's this George Coleman phrase, which I think he does at the start of his solo on Moment's Notice, but that's still one I work on, and I probably transcribed it when I was 16 or 17.
Wow.
It's that sort of... It's that sort of vocabulary, which is very saxophony, I guess. What's the tune? Freedom Jazz Dance sort of inspired, and this one's a Chris Potter one that probably transcribed a similar time, maybe a little bit later, maybe more when I was 20, but the pattern actually is just that, but then you can have fun with it by moving it around, based on different intervals. And after I've done a bit of it, then I'll start to link it. Try and have fun, just see how I can move it in and out of other phrases that I'm familiar with, and I'll often do this sort of in like 10-minute blocks. So I might just put on 10 minutes on the metronome, and then it's just a couple exercises like that just to get the technique warmed up, and then I'll sort of have fun just trying to create like long phrases where I don't stop. Maybe I'll pick a key, let's say it's just C minor, and then just see where the line can kind of take me, with the idea of just using that vocabulary to build phrases. And yeah, it
Interesting.
shows like some of those lines are so old, but it's still ones that I work on because they're good technically, but they're also cool phrases that I want to have at my fingertips if I kind of hear that sound during a solo and I want to kind of use that. Um, they'll come out hopefully then. But then also part of my practice would maybe be more like picking a track and then really trying to use a certain type of vocabulary and just like overuse it just so I can get the sound in my head as much as possible. For example, the thing I'm doing that with now is like just trying some of the Messiaen mode stuff like really slowly and just amassing vocabulary based off that, especially just the diminished one and the third one. And that's been fun as well, but it's a similar process, just trying to transcribe sounds that I think have that and checking if I'm right, as well as like finding resources for these types of scales and sounds, and then and then putting them through exercises, putting them through licks, and then trying to blend it in with stuff I'm familiar with, and then playing it over tracks and just building the kind of options I have when I go to improvise. But yeah, the inside picking one, the other thing with that is sort of like bebop vocabulary suits it. So after doing all the modern-y sounding fourth, fifth stuff, then it's just practicing like bebop vocabulary just from like just the technical things that are involved often, where it's like a lot of jumping with the pick and odd amounts of notes per string, all the enclosures, all that stuff. Technically requires definitely that inside picking for me to be very, very solid. So yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
Interesting. As I hear you demonstrate this and talk about this, I feel like you, at least for me as a guitar player, you've sort of matched two different worlds. And what I mean is like, because when I was growing up, I used to love, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, all of those guitar players and all of the shreddy stuff. And one of the things that I noticed when I started transitioning to jazz is that like the jazz players were like, I don't want to say technically less refined, but I mean like it's less clean, especially like,
Sure.
Some of the older players, like it's a little like what they're playing. It has the feeling, it has the changes and all of those things, but it's not as like clean and precise as like those other guitar players, because they would often, like Joe Satriani would play the same solo, right? He would go touring and play the same thing from the record, and like not all the time, but like sometimes.
No.
And yeah, I feel like you've taken that, like the crazy technical stuff that's super fast and clean, like that clean preciseness, and mixed it with. Do you know what I mean? Can you?
Sure, man.
Do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
think that you've done that, or can you speak a little bit about that?
For every player, it's like there's a priority of what they really love, and I think I am definitely and have always been attracted to kind of the real, clean technical players who are just endlessly creative, and I think that's what I've just tried to replicate, in yeah, kind of definitely a bit of guesswork as far as how I should practice this stuff, um, and then just trial and error over the years. And yeah, I think I'm always, even if I'm not playing something that's technical, I always feel like I want to be at a certain standard and level so that even stuff that doesn't require all the technique in the world, it's always there for me. Like I can use it when I want and be quite free. And I think that's something that maybe I was listening to guys like Chris Potter and Guthrie growing up. Like it seemed like they could do whatever they wanted. Like when they improvised, like anything could kind of happen. Same with someone like Borelli Legrand, and I found that really exciting. Like there weren't any limitations. There's no perceivable limitations when they play, and that's what makes it kind of unpredictable. And I've tried to sort of follow in that realm. if that makes sense. And I think, yeah, maybe
Totally.
like you say, technically for the older school players, which are all who are all amazing, of course.
Hmm.
It was probably just never. Yeah, and the guitar maybe at that time was also so much more new, so it's like actually wasn't many resources on what to do properly technically, because actually the electric
Hmm.
guitar is so
Hmm.
new, and their focus, was actually probably just playing as much as they could, and like learning the most amount of music possible, and absorbing all the
Hmm.
vocabulary of the day, and as it was just, I think, just different focus, as well as just knowing, you know not as much resource for this type of stuff, definitely, back then.
I remember Ben Yunson talking about that. Like, if you think of piano, for example, right? Like the
Yeah.
equal temperament piano, there's hundreds of years of like like what you're saying, how to
Yes.
play
Yeah.
it, how to like what is technique on the instrument. Whereas electric guitar, like it is a recent history, right? Like comparatively speaking, and like yeah, so maybe that plays into it, right? Like it took people to innovate and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
You mentioned a lot about like how you developed and with your dad's guidance and transcribing and like organizing your practice and obviously there's been a lot of like time and effort that's gone into that. Is there have you used any like traditional resources? Like a couple that come to mind are like the Advancing Guitarist by Mick Goodrick, or
Yeah.
like I saw a clip of you the other day on your most recent tour where you did some full-on sweep picking that reminded me of like Frank Gambale, and I was thinking like he has like the chop builder, right? Like
Yeah.
have you ever done like any like some of those formal resources?
Yeah, definitely have used like a lot of the traditional resources, and yeah, I'll try and think of them, list them off for sure. Like just YouTube in general played a huge part. I guess YouTube had very much started by the time I was really in my practice years, and all those older videos. I guess they're not even 20 years old now, but all the ones with Guthrie, like doing the what was those accounts, like Lick Library and um, JTC Guitar, obviously, and I grew up on all of that stuff for sure, and I did learn a lot, massive amounts from them. So all those, YouTube resources for sure. And then as far as books goes, like my dad did get me like a Charlie Parker Omni book in C, and that was definitely like a bit of a study book for me for a while. And I think I still have that somewhere. And then I got like a Michael Brecker solo transcription book as well, which worked out of that a little bit, just picking up little lines. I guess what it also did was um, it would say, obviously what song the solo came out of. So I would then, be able to go and try and find the track and listen to that as a whole and hear the solo in context, because my reading was always terrible. So it's not like I could see, notes on a sheet and kind of realize what it was going to sound like. So I always went to the source and checked out the tune. And if I liked the solo and liked the tune, then it was like, maybe highlight the little licks that I would like to get, just the small fragments, and work through them. Also, like the omnibooks were good for just annotating what the intervals were in a way. And I remember sitting in kind of science class, and instead of doing that work, I was kind of had the omnibook out, and I was just going through classic solos. Let's say it's just Donna Lee, and writing out what are the intervals over each chord as they come up, and just to see like how are these notes positioned within the bar. And it taught me a lot as far as like line construction that way, because I could see trends of like landing on the 3, landing on the 5, and then things like that. It just it definitely taught me a lot. Seeing where the color notes would play, seeing where he would use an arpeggio built off the 3rd rather than the 1, things like that. Throughout it, I could kind of realize what were the ideas within this vocabulary that are replicated multiple times throughout the solo. Um, the Advancing Guitarist, I did get that because I saw it on a video of James Muller. He had it on his music stand, And I was like, oh, I love James's playing, so that must be the book to go for. If that's the one he's working out of. So I ordered it straight away and went through it a bit, definitely. And it's like, it certainly has a lot of, you know, brain twisters as far as the guitar fretboard, right? Like a lot of challenges of like, you know, try and do this, take these two intervals, put them through this whole scale, take, you know, just these notes on these strings, just use this string, like a lot of limitation games and exercises, which are really helpful. And there was a couple other books I think just purely had like, you know, different chords, different chordal types. But I always reckon I think I learned the most from just the transcription process and actually playing and using all that stuff in like real life circumstances, like playing with my dad and learning tunes that way. For the sweep picking stuff, I think that comes just from the days when I was going through things by like Children of Bodom and learning some of their solos. I had like an old Alexi Leho DVD where he took you through all his riffs from Children of Bodom and like all the licks in it. So I definitely went through that and loved that. And then you mentioned the Franco Molly Chop Builder. I definitely learnt that lick at one point, you know, that monster lick in G, because I really tried to go hard with the economy picking for a while, for a good couple of years, because it seemed like the way to go, and I'd always had the idea that I had to pick every note, and my alternate picking was pretty... I could never get the hang of it as far as switching strings, so economy picking seemed like a good option at the time, and I definitely tried that a while, but I realized that I just didn't like the way it felt ultimately. It felt like my wrist was, or my hands were just too much, they were too gridded. I probably didn't sit with it enough, because I guess with all technique you want it to become, you know, so familiar and so ingrained that you actually don't have to think about when you play, you know, something that just feels natural. And I didn't get that with the economy picking, but I did get that with kind of the technique I use now, which is sort of adding in the hammer-ons and pull-offs in a very specific way around the economy and alternate, and having a system for that is what ultimately did give me that technical freedom. So yeah, that's the one that I've landed on. But yeah, man, all that stuff I've for sure been through over the years.
Amazing. Yeah, like I said, I could ask you questions for forever. I think I'll change to the rapid fire questions, and then we'll close
Sounds
it
good,
out.
man.
But
Sounds good.
here are the fast questions, and just like whatever comes to mind, and they're just going to be kind of random. Some of them I might ask you to play something.
Cool.
Okay,
Cool.
so who's your favorite composer?
Ooh, I just have to answer right now. Probably Pat Metheny.
Who's your favorite improviser?
Right now, Alan Holdsworth.
Desert Island album picks. What are a few that come to mind?
Ooh. Borelli Le Guin and Sylvain Luke's Summertime album. Then I would have to say Kind of Blue. Um, and my two real jazz picks, and then maybe a fusion pick. Well, I'll say a new one that I've been listening to a lot, which is Wardenclyffe Tower. So maybe, but that's
Okay,
a
I
fresh
should check
one.
that out.
That's a fresh one I've been listening to, especially Alan's sound on that is ridiculous. There's so many good albums, so that's a very tough question. But let's go with two classics and one new one that I've been checking out recently.
Let's say you're at a jam session. What tune are you calling? What's like your go-to?
Ooh. Oh, for many years it was Green Dolphin Street.
What's your favorite 251 substitution?
Uh, oh, um, you mean as far as like what to do on the five chord as far as a sub?
Yeah, it could be. Yep. Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I guess just the classic one really. The you know um, I've been having fun with the diminished stuff recently, so maybe something like that, like using the that sort of sound. Um,
I have two more. What's something that you've recorded that like you're the most proud of?
I'd say the first album I did, the one I released earlier this year. Um, and say that the song maybe most proud of, maybe Ultraviolet would be the most
Hmm.
proud, especially like the solo, because it was just a, you know, live solo in the studio, no overdubs on it or anything. It was just, which is always, yeah, something that um, I aspired to be able to do,
Hmm.
in especially just hearing the stories from all the greats, and wanting to be able to do something similar. So I think maybe that track, that solo.
Sweet. And then final question: what's the a favorite piece of advice that you've received from a mentor?
Um, Maybe just, I would say just a, maybe not specific phrase or anything, but I would say just a general, always feeling of a general feeling of encouragement always from my dad. I'd say that's probably the biggest one. Just that feeling of being supported, but also pushed at the same time. That kind of that real balance of that. Yeah,
Hmm.
so that's a big one.
Amazing. Sick. All right, so that brings us to a close. That's been good company. I'm Quentin Angus, and we sat down with Josh Meader today. And thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.